This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, our weekend show is all about the two of us, each nominating what we think is the biggest story, the biggest business story, that is, of the week, the most remarkable business story, the sleeper story, one that's flying under the radar a little bit, and our favourite business-related or business-adjacent story. And every week we are joined by a judge to pick a winner. Usually that judge is our Fear and Greed colleague, Adam Lang. Adam is having a well-deserved week off. It is not a reflection on his previous judgments. We haven't sent him packing for a week.
Which have been appalling, just quietly. But anyway.
I think we can agree on that, really. Broadly speaking, terrible judging. But in his place this week, we have economics correspondent at Capital Brief, Jennifer Duke. Jen, good morning.
Good morning.
Are you optimistic that you will deliver a better outcome than Adam?
Well, I have to dob you in first, Michael, because I don't think Sean knows that when you invited me on here, you were already badgering me to give you more points. So I'm already pre-primed against you because I don't enjoy that kind of bribery.
Thank you.
Just on a level playing field here.
That is, look, I can't deny it because it is all via text message. So
I have written proof. I've got the receipts.
I don't know what that, isn't there a phrase, a zebra doesn't change its stripes or something or other like that, you know?
Leopard spots.
Leopard spots, is that what it is? Yeah. He's consistent at least, Jen. Michael is very consistent.
Yep. I will get the points however I need to, and if that involves bribery or kind of persuasion, just gentle suggestions that maybe I deserve a win, then I will do whatever it takes. Sean, shall we jump into the biggest story of the week? Let's make this a fair fight today.
Yes.
Forget all of that kind of nastiness.
Yes. Corruption.
Are we?
You can't throw words like corruption around.
We prefer cheating on this show, Jen, if that's okay.
That's right.
I think the biggest story of the week, I mean, it has to be the biggest story of the week because we all have super funds. The convulsions in global equity markets over the past week or so, they were pretty wild. They wiped off hundreds of billions of dollars in value and then basically gained hundreds of billions of dollars in value back. It's a great way for investors to lose money, particularly if they're trading all this volatility. Earlier in the week, the ASX 200 lost 5.5% over 2 sessions. Wall Street tumbled. The Japanese market fell 13% on one day, then rebounded 10% the next day. Now, the reason for the moves, over recent months, investors had pretty much convinced themselves that the US economy wasn't going to go into recession. Then late last week, there were some weak data measures of the manufacturing and services sector and the labour market. They were uniformly weak. Investors are just great at picking out the eyes of economic data to suit their argument. But when everything looks bad, everyone has to reassess. Suddenly, the likelihood of a recession in the US went from almost nothing to maybe around 30, 40%. Equity markets repriced. It's actually quite rational. Now, remember, stock markets started at a near record level when the sell-off began. Now, both Wall Street and the ASX are trading around the level that they've actually been for the past 4 or 5 months. There was a period last month where they were higher. There was a period in April where they were lower. But actually, they're about where they have been for 4 or 5 months. It's more of a readjustment than a crash or anything like that. Briefly on that Japanese market, a couple of things happened there. Interest rates are rising. They could continue to do so. That's about the first time in about 25 years that's happened in Japan. So bonds suddenly look more attractive relative to equities. So people dump equities, jump into bonds. Related to this is something called the carry trade or the unwinding of the carry trade. For years, investors have been borrowing Japanese money, really low interest rates, investing it elsewhere. Suddenly rates in Japan are rising and people are thinking about putting it back into Japan. The Mrs. Watanabe effect, who is apparently she's a retail investor who does that. Anyway, all this together, we have had absolute turmoil in financial markets, particularly equities. We've had risk assets tumbling, like the Aussie dollar, like Bitcoin. Huge week for markets. Michael, your biggest story of the week.
Oh, that is a big story. But as you say, Sean, important to keep these kind of market gyrations in perspective. Big drops, big sell-offs, but still, as you say, local market still trading around where it was for the last 5 months or so. So, big story.
What about the people that lost all their money?
But Sean, it was a big story when it happened. You know what story is going to have a lasting effect?
Yeah.
An ongoing impact on the entire country will be, of course, the Reserve Bank. and the board's decision this week. Not just the fact that the RBA board left rates on hold, but the fact that they didn't even consider cutting them. There are only two options.
Hold on. You're complaining about me having markets at the same level. What did the Reserve Bank do? The first part of that sentence?
Sean, it feels like that's a minor irrelevant detail that you're focusing on. There are only two options on the table for the RBA board: raise rates or hold for a long time. And inflation obviously still too high. The board thinks it'll take longer to get it back into the target band. So what does it mean for mortgage holders? No rate cuts anytime soon.
Hold on. We've got to jump in here. Jen, do you have a mortgage?
No, I do not. I've thankfully paid off my mortgage, so that's nice.
Oh, no way. You're too young for that.
I'm very, very frugal would be the way to put that.
Jen, I'm in awe. Well done.
And our house is tiny. That helps.
This isn't going to help your argument, Michael, for the record, but go on.
No, it's not. But I find this stuff fascinating, obviously.
Obviously. But
occupational
that's what
hazard.
you do for life.
Yeah, absolutely. But you also then know that you know what? It takes a lot of the wind out of my sails. But that's okay. That's fine. Because there are plenty of people out there that still do have a mortgage, and a lot of people that have been suffering with the cost of living as interest rates have been rising. Are you making a noise,
I'm
Sean?
whimpering. You're telling my story, Michael. You're telling my life story.
Oh, goodness.
I've never seen so much intervention in someone else's biggest story before.
He just doesn't stop, does he?
I'll shut up now.
Now, the thing is, though, plenty of very experienced economists prior to Tuesday were tipping a rate cut as soon as November. Not anymore. Won't be this year at all. Next year, maybe. And the Reserve Bank Governor Michelle Bullock has warned that the RBA won't hesitate to raise rates again if needed, if inflation looks like it's getting out of hand. A political angle as well. I'm just I don't know what your judging criteria are here, Jen, but I'm assuming it's kind of economic impact and also a political angle and all these kinds of things. So political angle, tick, because the governor took a veiled shot at government spending right around the country, suggesting kind of in kind of Reserve Bank speak that it was perhaps contributing to the ongoing inflation challenge. Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers rejected that. The Prime Minister did too, but talk about stirring things up. The hopes... Okay, just take one quick step back here and assess. We end the week in a vastly different position to where we started. The hopes of an imminent rate cut, the hopes of a nation, have been dashed. The spectre of more rate rises is hanging over us. And a political spat over government spending, not helped, of course, by the big spending promises out of Queensland. In terms of stories, in terms of the stories that everyday Australians are talking about, the one that they will still be talking about next week and the week after, the one that they're losing sleep over, this is it. The biggest story of the week. Do we get points for melodrama from you, Jen? Because I know that Adam does. It feels like...
I was just wondering that. I was thinking about it because I thought for the melodrama, you're really bringing it, whereas Sean is very much, everyone be relaxed. This is very similar to what the kind of levels we've seen in the past. We're still on very similar levels to what we've seen in the past Reserve Bank as well, but you're in the, maybe there's more hikes to come. So,
that's right.
For melodrama, you maybe get a point. But then you'll set a point taken off for trying to cheat. So you're probably back to an equal level.
Excellent. Excellent.
Don't like where this is going. All right, judge us.
Well, look, I think that this one's really tricky for me because I find the Reserve Bank incredibly, incredibly fascinating. But interestingly, when I was at the Reserve Bank on Tuesday for the decision, all the conversation in the room among the reporters was about whether Michelle would comment on the markets and what's been going on in the markets and how she might perceive that and how that might play into what they're doing. But at the same time, I think that clearly what she said and that political angle that you referenced has so much relevance to Australia. So I actually think I'm going to line ball this one and give you both an equal win.
Ooh. That's very Adam Lang of you.
Oh, did he pass on his notes?
We learn from the best.
Yes. We're going to call that a draw. Oh. Wow. Oh. What I do like is that Michael still has not managed to win on an economic story yet in this show.
Yeah. And especially talking to someone, Jen, who lives and breathes this. I thought that I would have, when I got in early and reserved it.
Honestly, if the markets had happened on any other week, you probably would have won that point. But it was really interesting. Everyone in the room was just like, is she going to comment on what's going on in the markets? How did the forecast take into account the markets? So I feel like those two are actually kind of part of the same story in a way.
Jen, what's it like in those press conferences with Michelle Bullock? Are you impressed by her?
Because I actually am. I don't know everyone else's opinion on this, but she seems incredibly calm with very varied questions. So it could be as simple as, are you really upset about the kind of letters you're getting? We kind of get that from the tabloid press. And then there's some really, really technical questions. There's some central bank specialist publications that are there as well. And she pretty much canvasses them all pretty openly. I think she's quite honest when she speaks. And even though this time everything kind of devolved very quickly into a bit of a political argy-bargy. She was back up again in Armidale. I think that was on Thursday.
At the Rotary Club.
Yes, I know. It's so funny. Well, she's an alumni of UNE, and I think they were hosting it. So there's a lot of connections for her there. That's her childhood hometown. And she kind of leveled things out a little bit more. She was a bit more soothing about that relationship with the government. So it is really hard for her. I mean, she has to balance the relationship with Jim Chalmers, plus her communications with the public, and a lot of jawboning, I'm assuming, is going on, as well as managing the expectations of the media. And it just must be such a hard job. And I actually think she does quite well at it. I don't know if you share the same opinion.
Yeah, no, I think she has done a great job. Very plain spoken, Michelle Bullock.
Definitely.
And I think that's
definitely
great.
I think that's the country in her, which is nice.
So Phil Lowe was from Wagga Wagga.
Yes.
In southwestern New South Wales. Michelle Bullock's from Armidale in northwestern New South Wales. Glenn Stevens, the guy before, he was from the Shire in Sydney, I think. Am I right?
Hardly. You're kind of the country. If you live in Sydney,
that's right.
You consider that the country, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's these country folk. They're doing a good job.
I don't know. I think it's interesting to see whether or not we'll have that same effect going forward, because there was some study out recently that was showing that people that study economics are increasingly in the city. We're getting way less diversity through that pipeline now. So it'll be interesting to see if we actually get another regional female head of the Reserve Bank in the future.
I was just marking this day on the calendar as the first time there's ever been a worthwhile or interesting conversation on the weekend edition. Usually it's just... there's actually a chance. There's actually a chance that people could find that both interesting and educational. So
yeah, but 2 of the 5 of them are right here in this
that's
podcast.
right.
Well done. All right, moving on then to the most remarkable story of the week. I will go first on this one, Sean.
Sure, go for it.
First in the last one. Just looking at the stories this week, there's one that kind of stood out because can you imagine your pay being docked by $9 million?
Well, no, actually, I can't.
Yeah, for your pay to be docked $9 million, you have to be paid at least $9 million, and I don't think any of us are at this point. But it happened this week in I would describe it as one of the most remarkable cases of corporate accountability that we've ever seen. Former Qantas CEO Alan Joyce has lost $9.3 million of his 2023 pay, meaning he earned just $14.9 million for the year. It is a big chunk gone after a board-commissioned review found mistakes made by the airline's management created significant reputational and customer service issues. Now, remember, this was all unfolding almost exactly 12 months ago, right? Qantas had delivered a bumper profit, but then the CEO was in front of a parliamentary committee on the cost of living, having to kind of explain the high airfares. And there was this long list of complaints from passengers about kind of late flights and lost baggage and hours on hold for customer assistance. And then there were the biggies, the really big ones that just completely knocked Qantas and Alan Joyce about. Legal action by the ACCC over fares sold by Qantas on flights that had already been cancelled, and then the slightly later ruling by the High Court that, yes, 1,700 Qantas workers had been sacked illegally during the pandemic. This is what we saw from the outside, right? But this review, and this is why the story is also so remarkable, because the review shows us what was happening on the inside. Too much deference to a long-tenured CEO, the board not challenging management, ignoring non-financial risks, a command and control leadership style, an adversarial approach to engagement with key stakeholders. And for all that, the then CEO is being held responsible, which does make sense, really, because he was running the show. And while $9.3 million in bonuses is a lot to lose, maybe this is an example to others about leadership styles and the need to perhaps evolve the leadership style when something that has worked for a very long time and seen Qantas through a number of difficult periods, that maybe it's not going to work forever and it needs to evolve. Put it all together, it is a really, really remarkable story this week. And it was brief, Sean. I think
it
that's
wasn't
probably
bad
the
at
thing
all.
that surprised
Do you know,
me.
this is a really unpopular thing to say, but I feel slightly sorry for Alan Joyce. Because if you read that report,
I feel the hate mail already coming in.
If you read that report right, the board's main job in a listed company is to hire and fire the CEO. They're the ones who look up. And I'm not saying that and this stuff didn't happen. Clearly it happened, but the board let it happen. And so, Alan Joyce, his reputation is totally tarnished. Remember, he's the guy who really helped Jetstar get off the ground. He took on the pilots. Okay, he grounded aircraft maybe, but he was a really strong leader in that sense. The loyalty program's the biggest in the country. He did some pretty remarkable. He got through COVID. Okay, the government gave him lots of money, but he went out and asked for it. He was quite a remarkable leader. Now, this end period was a disaster, but I reckon the board is as responsible as Alan Joyce. Anyway, I digress.
Dock their pay as well?
Well, yes, basically. My most remarkable story, if you Google monopolist, one of the first results...
Which is something I do frequently, Sean.
Well, I know. The point is, do you Google? Yes? No?
Oh, good point.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, I know where you're going. Oh, that was well executed. Yeah. Oh, I give him 10 for execution.
The artistic gymnastics. One of the first results you get is the US Federal Trade Commission. And it basically says the word means a firm with significant and durable market power. It says that generally a company needs to have at least 50% market share to be considered a monopoly. And it's illegal for a single firm to unreasonably restrain competition by creating or maintaining monopoly power. That's what comes up from the US Federal Trade Commission if you Google monopolist. So where's that leave Google, owned by Alphabet? It has 89% of search traffic on laptops, 95% on mobile devices. Is that a monopolist? Well, the US Justice Department has been chasing Google for years. This week, according to a judge in the US District Court, it was declared that Google, Alphabet's Google, is a monopolist, and the ubiquitous search engine has been illegally exploiting its dominance to squash and stifle innovation in the sector. This is a huge win for the US Justice Department, which has been trying to break Google's stranglehold on search for years. It fits into the whole big tech story with regulators in Europe, in North America, in Australia to a lesser extent, taking on these big tech players to break their market dominance. Today, search results basically show us what Google wants us to see. Now, if the ruling sticks, and of course Google is appealing it, or Alphabet's appealing it really, the company will have to let other players into the search world. This is coming ahead of generative AI rolling out around the world. And generative AI is the next paradigm of search. And I don't think it would be very healthy if we have one player with 90% of the market in generative AI. The whole search world is remarkable, and the size of the win this week by the Department of Justice is definitely remarkable and will have far-reaching ramifications. Over to you, Jen. Forget Alan Joyce. He's a good bloke. Think. I shouldn't have said that. Think Google.
This is going to be an interesting one. I think that Google story is very, very interesting and clearly something that's been playing out for a while.
Doesn't sound good for you here, Sean.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good for me.
Well, is it remarkable that we think Google's a monopoly? I mean, that's really what this judgment is hanging on.
They won. The Justice Department won. That's remarkable.
Are you questioning the likelihood of the law winning out in the favour of justice? Is that what's remarkable?
We're talking about the US here. Of course that's remarkable.
I'm actually going to give this one to Michael because as much as I actually do think that story is a very good one, and I very much enjoyed your creative intro into it, I think that seeing any CEO have to lose that quantum of salary after such an incredibly remarkable period of time in an airline's history, I think that one's going to have to win it by about 1 point only. And I will also say it's quite nice to hear Michael talking about airlines again. I know he loves his planes. So.
It's been too long. I mean, well, last week I talked a lot about Rex as well. I tried to say that Rex was the biggest story of the week. In fact, didn't that fail miserably?
I think last week you referred back to the fact that you predicted Rex would take over from Qatar Airways as the greatest airline in the world.
You needed a regional judge for that one.
Yeah, very much.
Look, there's a fair chance that, Sean, you should have won that one, but you didn't. 1.5 to half.
Hold on, you can't abuse the judge after she gave you a win.
No, fine. 1.5 to half a point. All right? I'm in the lead. This is a very rare thing to be happening.
Bring back Adam, I say. Bring back Adam.
Wow. We will take a quick break. We will come back in a moment with a sleeper story of the week. All right, Sean, we are looking for a sleeper story. A sleeper story is, of course, one that's not getting the attention that we feel it deserves. Or really, in this category has kind of become our opportunity to predict what is going to be a bigger story further down the track. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the lens through which I see this category. Would you like to go first?
Sure. Work from home era is over. Yep. We found that out this week. We didn't actually hear that, but that's what the announcement from the New South Wales government will lead to. That's why it's a sleeper story. Basically, the Premier, Chris Minns from New South Wales, ordered all of the state's public servants back to work. This was on Monday. There's 450,000 of them. And he said, everyone needs to come back to work tomorrow. I love the fact that he gave them 24 hours notice. Workers are now expected to use offices across the whole working week, which will impact small businesses in the CBD, like coffee shops, office vacancy rates, transport systems. But it'll also affect all those little coffee shops in the suburbs where people live. Transurban came out, the toll road operator came out this week and said it actually expects revenue to increase because of this decision by Chris Minns. The head of the Premier's department, a guy called Simon Draper, said it wasn't a mandate, but rather it was advice. Chris Minns himself put it much better. I quote, "You can't be a nurse in your tracky dacks in the lounge room, and you can't teach a class in your backyard while you're doing jobs around the house." End quote. As we discussed during the week, any story that's got tracky dacks deserves a win, I would say. Now, Mr. Minns is totally wrong, of course, because there is a thing called telehealth. You know, medical professionals, they can be in their trackies. They can go online.
No, very, very hard to insert a catheter or an IV drip over telehealth.
Can we bring back tracky dacks as appropriate office attire? I feel like that would solve half of
you're
this
probably
problem.
right, Jen. Actually, if you're allowed to wear tracky dacks into the office.
Yeah.
Maybe this is where I like that.
That's like the going halfway. That's compromise.
Yeah, that's the hybrid of the future.
Hybrid work outfits.
Yes, I'm liking this. Anyway, and just for the record, Michael, telehealth, if you have one particular expert, it may not be a doctor but or a nurse, but you can actually have people insert catheters and take drips via telehealth. Anyway, my family's involved in this, so I know lots and lots about it. I just totally lost where I was going. Basically, Western Australia and Tasmania have also told staff to return to the office. The federal government, ACT, South Australia and Queensland have all formalised hybrid working. The stats on work from home are a bit dated. I mean, they're a year old, which in the fast-moving world we live in is a bit old, but 37% of people regularly work from home. That's as of August last year. The reason this is a sleeper story is that the work from home boom is officially over as of this week. And I reckon over the next decade, we'll almost get back to the same level of office occupancy as we had pre-COVID, albeit with tracky dacks and shorts allowed. My sleeper story, Michael.
Look, an early warning siren sounded this week, and luckily for all of us, I heard it, and I'm going to.
Oh gosh, here we go.
Finger on the pulse.
Yeah, that's our man.
That's right.
Our man in the field.
Yep. Because it's a warning about widespread job cuts in a sector that's one of our biggest exports. I'm talking about education, of course, and universities. Warning that 14,000 jobs could go. With the government pushing ahead with its plan to cap international student numbers, the boss of Universities Australia told a parliamentary inquiry that the government was using students as cannon fodder and that it was all political, that international students are being unfairly blamed for the housing crisis. Even without the proposed student caps, the inquiry heard that the government had already taken a sledgehammer to the international education sector. with visa grant rates down 23% or almost 60,000 students over the past year. Student visa rules.
Are you saying the university sector's complaining?
No.
Well, hold the front page.
I'm building to something, and it is about
Right,
the university sector's capacity to complain.
Oh,
so
good.
this is where I'm going with this.
Keep going.
Because the numbers here are huge, significantly huge.
Significantly huge. That's quite the adjective.
60,000 students, a $4.3 billion hit to the economy, 14,000 jobs at risk in the sector. Now, Sean, to your point,
Yes.
let's just think about this for a moment. Who, between the three of us, who can we think of that won't stand for this? Widespread cuts that may affect the quality of education. Any particular groups that are particularly vocal, very, very active, have a certain willingness to protest. This could be the cause that mobilizes students in a way that we haven't seen since the voluntary student unionism protests of 2007, except this time they are protesting the decisions of a Labor government, which could make it very, very interesting, pitting the tertiary sector, typically a hotbed of left-wing political activity, against a government of the same persuasion. Watch this space, because not only are the economic impacts of this huge, if these caps on student numbers go through, but the political implications and the social impact as well are almost unquantifiable. Oh,
crazy! Can I add an extra part to this? Wasn't it this week that the Bangladeshi Prime Minister stepped down on the back of student protests?
Student protests,
yes,
indeed.
Well, I would normally concede this because that is such a remarkable sleeper story, but it's not. Over to you, Jen.
I was going to agree with that point. I just can't agree that this belongs in the sleeper category. It's a great story. It's full of really interesting things for the economy. It's one of our biggest exports, education. It is fascinating, but it's being very well covered. Whereas I feel like, Sean, you're sort of tracky dacks to the Office style angle on what has been a big story over the week, but I also think the ramifications of it have yet to be fully played out in the media. I think that just slides in as a sleeper story. And so with a little bit of subjective bias, as one of those people who does predominantly work from home and in trackies, I'm going to give this one to you.
Thank you very much. Well judged. Well judged.
And just like that, this episode has become a farce.
So I'm remembering all these comments for the next time if I get invited back.
Yep. Farce. Unable to be bribed.
See, I don't like you not being able to be bribed.
Yeah.
This is the only place where being incorruptible is a bad thing. Is that the idea?
Totally. Because I've got to say, my next story, I've done purely for you.
Oh, that's exciting.
It's my favourite story.
I do like flattery, so that's fine.
Jen, apart from your life partner, who is your best friend? Be honest.
Probably my mum.
Oh, okay. No. Can we think broader of
my animals? Is that what you're going to say?
Your dogs, perhaps.
Yes, that's probably also fair.
Well. And sorry, Mum, you've just come in third. Luxury brand Dolce & Gabbana has introduced a new fragrance for dogs.
Good grief.
And it's a bargain at about $170 a bottle. You've probably got some already. Mm-hmm. You did say you were frugal, but $170 is not too much for your best friend or second best friend. According to D&G's website, the alcohol-free fragrance, specifically for dogs, contains, and I quote, the cocooning and warm notes of ylang, the clean and enveloping touch of musk, and the woody, creamy undertones of sandalwood. End quote. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. According to the New York Times, the perfume has been certified by some crowd called the Safe Pet Cosmetics, which is an independent veterinary organisation in Italy. Now, slight problem, according to the critics, just a slight problem. The most important sense a dog has is smell. It's how they navigate the world. You know, they sniff other dogs, for example. They sniff humans, food, potential dangers. You alter that, and there's this risk of all sorts of confusion among dogs and social issues and not sure who's who. And are you wearing Dolce & Gabbana? No, I'm wearing Chanel 5. Oh, right, I see. Off we go. Now, there are a few dog perfumes around. Hound, Hownd, is a dog food and grooming company. It makes Peach Bum Natural Parfume for lady dogs. That's what it's called. Peach Bum Natural Parfume for lady dogs.
Why does lady dogs feel like an insult?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot wrong with that. But let's just park that. Peanut and Pickle, which is another organisation. It's got a selection of fragrances: coconut, sea salt, peppermint, and grapefruit. My dog Flo, if I put a grapefruit near Flo, she runs a mile. She ain't interested in that one. Even Queen Elizabeth II, back in 2022, introduced a perfume for her dogs, corgis, of course. Anyway, I just think this is just such a cracking story. And it's my favourite story of the week.
My mind is a little bit blown by this. Yes. There's a whole industry in creating dogs. Like, do people not like the smell of their own dogs?
Well, I don't like the smell of my dogs.
My dog has like his paws smell like popcorn.
Oh.
Highly recommend smelling your dog's paws. There we go.
How do you do that?
Well, how do you smell his paws?
What? No, I know how you smell his paws. How do you get his paws to smell like paws? Are you using...
Yeah, that's just what they smell like. It's just what dog paws smell like.
Are you sure?
Yeah, genuinely.
Are you sure you're not using the Peach Bum Natural Parfum for lady dogs?
Special popcorn butter scented perfume for $170. Yeah, no.
Michael, beat that.
It almost feels like it is pointless because I don't want to sound kind of like a petulant child.
Perish the thought.
But this is entirely unfair. You are playing the judge extraordinarily here. When everybody knows that there is only one story that should be the universal favourite this week. And I know it's a little unorthodox because it was my favourite story last week as well.
You can't do it 2 weeks in a row. That's cheating.
Watch me.
Right.
Watch me. New judge. Get to do it all again. It is the Olympics. And I can't help it, Sean, if I am patriotic. Because it's hard not to get behind our most successful Olympic team ever. The most gold medals we've ever won. A spectacular display of athleticism across a huge range of disciplines. And I also love that we've seen so many new sports, either for the first time in Paris or just relatively recent additions to the games. You've got obviously your skateboarding and your surfing, yes. But then there's the sport climbing, which I thought was awesome. The break dancing, breaking. Do you know that in the 1908 Olympics they had pistol dueling?
So you'd really want to be the gold medal winner in that one, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It's kind of like Squid Game, isn't it? It's just like, anyway, only one survivor at the end and they get the gold, the silver and the bronze. But last week's favourite story, I looked at the various sports that are currently in the Olympics that I thought I could be part of and kind of coast my way to a gold medal. Instead, this week, I thought I would look at sports that should be added for the next games in LA in 2028. Things where just the mere mortals like you and me, both of you and me, might stand a chance. And these are some of the sports that I came up with. Squeezing the very last of the toothpaste out of the tube.
Yeah, no, I'm a winner on that.
That's very relatable.
I would be a gold medalist at that. I can keep using a tube of toothpaste 4 days after the rest of the household.
I'm with you totally,
has
Michael.
given up.
Like, I live with a bunch of sort of sluggish people who aren't prepared to roll the toothpaste from the bottom to the top and get the extra 4 days out. With you totally.
No, Sean, you've got to cut it open. You've got to cut it open at the end.
Level. Hold on.
Come on.
You did say you were frugal.
You want to pay off your mortgage, that's how you got to do it. Cut over your toothpaste.
Well, I mean, the Federation of Toothpaste Tubes would not allow that in the Olympic Games. You can't, no scissors allowed. This has to be kind of just brute strength and strategy. And you can use it like you use something hard like a stapler or something to push against it and it essentially steamrolls the last of the toothpaste out. Anyway, that's one. Another skill that could be an Olympic sport, squeezing an avocado to test its ripeness without bruising a ripe avocado.
Ooh.
Which is
high stakes.
It's quite a niche skill.
Oh, get over yourself, Michael. What are you talking about?
But you want to really give it a decent squeeze to make sure that it is fully ripe. But you don't want to squeeze it too hard that it bruises. It's a fine line to walk, and it's a potential gold medal skill. Marathon toothbrushing. I don't mean to dwell on teeth, but I've been known to walk around with toothpaste in my mouth for upwards of 40 minutes.
Yep. So there are two types of people in the world. There are those that clean their teeth in front of the mirror, and there's those that go wandering. Jen, which one are you?
I'm a wanderer, but I use an electric toothbrush that times it, so you're not ending up 40 minutes walking around the house.
But don't you sometimes just sort of ignore it? Goes and then goes on again.
Well, if you're in the middle of like doing something else at the same time, and then you're like, I guess we're doing another cycle. Yeah, extra clean today.
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah, but when you got the old school manual toothbrush and you're cruising around, just walking around, having a chat to people, that's how actually I got the nickname Squirrel. Would you believe?
Really?
Was because when I would stop to talk to people, I would tuck the toothpaste up into my cheeks, and it would like kind of puff the cheeks out like that, and then
you have some very disgusting oral habits, Michael.
That's got to be your new profile picture, surely.
Anyway, and that is where the nickname came from. Anyway, one more skill, just a quick one: stopping the petrol bowser at exactly a round number, whether it's a dollar figure or an exact literage. You nail it every single time, regardless of whether it's a bowser I haven't used.
Pedants of Australia unite.
That's yep.
I suspect that I don't mean to be.
I don't want to overstate my importance here, but
I could be Australia's answer to Michael Phelps. So if anyone at the IOC is listening right now, which is unlikely considering the Olympics are on and they're probably busy, don't deny this youngish Australian his chance to become a legend. Put toothbrushing into the 2028 Olympic Games and write your name and mine into the history books. The Olympics are my favourite story of the week. And Jen, I realise now I should have included a dog-based event.
There already are kind of dog Olympics.
There are.
Look, yes, there's was it flyball and a bunch of those obstacle course type ones. I consider them dog Olympics.
They are. And do you know what the winner gets?
What do they get?
Parfum.
Do they really?
Parfum from Dolce & Gabbana.
Oh, no. I can't believe I just fell for that. Jen, please judge us.
This is an interesting one because I loathe sport, absolutely hate it. However, this year I found the Olympics surprisingly addictive. And I think that's just the nature of the kind of characters we're getting and the really unusual storylines. And some of the social media coverage has just been hysterical. And now I'm loving the idea of the avocado squeezing contest, particularly because in my family, one of us is chosen as the avocado picker at the supermarket, and that would be the wife because she's much, much better at choosing them than I am. And
get over yourselves, guys. Come on.
So we already have a bit of a championship. At the same time, dog perfume, whole industry on dog perfume, I'm still absolutely boggled. So I'm going to have to give you guys another draw, which is...
Oh, no way.
This is beautiful.
Crazy. I know. I'm like, are you allowed to do this?
Well, Adam does it all the time. He's a dullest judge around because they're always drawing. 2-2. Oh,
that's right.
I mean...
There we go.
I'm actually delighted not to kind of come away with half a point against the Olympics.
Yeah, that's...
So I've just jumped in and taken it. That's it. It's all over. Yep, 2-2.
Yeah, that's after I've finished cheapening the Olympics legacy with talking about toothpaste tubes and squirrel cheeks.
Do you think it's interesting that there's more mateship in the Olympics than there is on the weekend edition? There's much more sportsmanship and...
So what you're saying, that the true global competition is here?
That's right. That's right. The duel to the death is actually on Fear and Greed.
I think we've been put in our box, Michael.
I think we have indeed. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
And thank you, Jen.
Thanks so much, Michael.
That was Jennifer Duke, economics correspondent at Capital Brief. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great weekend.